Welcome to the Perpetual show. Where the loaves go, we've got flow. Oh yeah. Driving through the fields of green, oh so bright. With the loaf by your side, everything feels right. Loafing through the fields, feeling so alive. In our boxy Russian van, we're taking our stride. Past the fallen soldiers, a bittersweet sight. But we're cruising on this road tonight. Bouncing to the rhythm, calypso in our soul. The loaf's engine purring as our story unfolds. We're singing and we're dancing, the sun shining above. The loaf takes us places where we find love. Loafing through the fields, feeling so alive. In our boxy Russian van, we're taking our stride. Past the fallen soldiers, a bittersweet sight. But we're cruising on this road tonight. Bouncing to the rhythm, calypso in our soul. The love's engine purring as our story unfolds. We're singing and we're dancing, the sun shining above. The loaf takes us places where we find love.
Hello, everybody. We're here. I hope you enjoyed the song. I played the whole song this time, and I made sure you could hear it all, unlike last time. Yeah, and I see a lot of you have Calypso in your soul, which is what we like. That's what we like to see when we start the stream. We want to see some Calypso. How are you doing, Gik?
Hello, good evening. Well, it's been another week. So yeah, we made another week. I guess that's a good part.
Yes. It is.
And I actually got to listen to the full Loaf song. So I wanted to turn it off because I know you're gonna be, starting to talk while it's still running, but I just couldn't.
There you go. Yeah. So, do you want to start talking about Sumi, or do you want to talk about starting, somewhere else? Or by Sumi, I mean Kursk.
Well, I guess we could let the audience decide, maybe.
Because I don't really have much to say about other places. It's all terrible, by the way.
Yeah.
I guess I could just go through that first. And then we
Yeah, can you share your screen with me as well, so I see?
You want to see my screen?
Yeah.
I didn't do that before. Okay, here. You can see it. So basically, elsewhere in the war, the area around Pokrovsk is not good. It's actually really bad. Really bad. So basically what's happening is that Russia is going between settlements, and when they go between them and around them, it makes a settlement indefensible. So, for example, if we go back a day or two and we look at Rifka, okay? So what happened?
Andrew, quick interruption here. I was just really confused because I thought, okay.
Oh, the map is backwards. Yeah.
Yeah, who is Russia attacking now?
I totally forgot about that. Yeah. Let me fix that. Yeah, because I had to flip it for the last stream I did, and forgot to unflip it. There you go. Sorry. Yeah,
That's
the
better.
the last stream I did, everything was mirrored. Anyway, so here in Orlivka, so what the Russians did is they were going down this rail line. I'm just gonna turn off the colors because the colors are a bit much right now. I'm just gonna turn off the colors. So basically, the the Russians they went down this rail line and they got to Mykolaiv, right? So that collapsed the entire southern flank of Orlivka. And simultaneously they went through these fields and kind of made it to around here. So in doing so, they collapsed both the north and south flank. Um, the the eastern flank was still kind of holding, but they had to withdraw because they were basically completely surrounded at that point. They withdrew. Um, the Russians attacked from the south and from the north, and Ukraine completely withdrew from Orlivka. And that happened over the course of a day, basically. And this is just kind of one example of what's happening. Has basically happened to all of these towns, and it's going to continue happening. Um, right now, they're attacking Hrodivka, and they've made it into the town. We don't know exactly how far into the town they've made it, but the short of it is that they're in the town, so they pinned down these defensive forces, and meanwhile they're basically going. They're probably going to go around like this, between Ivanivka and Hrodivka, and in doing so, they'll make Ivanivka indefensible, if they haven't already. So Ivanivka will be forced to retreat, and in doing so, they will surround Hrodivka, and Hrodivka will be forced to retreat. And this Zhiravka, this is also going to be forced to retreat because they've kind of broken all the way through the southern flank and probably pretty much half captured it already. And there's a Novohrodivka, which is going to suffer a similar fate. There's Mykolaiv, which is approximately 50% cleared of Ukrainians, give or take. Yesterday we had some video of Russians assaulting it. All the Russians perished, but it's a really bad sign, honestly. So this whole thing is basically collapsing, and the way it's collapsing is that Russia keeps like breaking through between the settlements, and Ukraine just doesn't have the forces to stop them. Ukraine is approximately outnumbered 10-1, and there's basically no defensive lines anywhere. So that's why this is all collapsing. It's not good. It's really bad. There's been a lot of talk of like, should Ukraine be defending this area instead of attacking Kursk? And I don't really understand how Ukraine could defend this. Like, I genuinely don't understand how they could. There's no defensive lines anywhere. There's like basically no defenses, and they're outnumbered 10-1. And Russia is just breaking through. They're like all these towns are falling like dominoes. That's basically what's happening. So the way I see it is that Ukraine is going to have to fall back to some defensive point further back where they can secure all of their flanks so that they're not constantly attacked on three sides. Because that's really the issue right now, is that no matter where you look, Ukraine is getting attacked on three sides. And once that place falls, that opens up, attacking on three sides somewhere else. So like here, for example, they've been kind of moving through this field to get around Khodivka, and once they get to the north of it, Khodivka will be attacked on three sides, and they'll be forced to retreat. And once they get here, they're going to wrap around, and they'll be forced to retreat out of this town, and in doing so, they'll wrap around this one and be forced to retreat out of this one, and that's just it's really bad. Like, this should not have been allowed to happen in the first place. This is kind of like a cascading failure at this point. And yeah, so that's kind of the issue going on in this area. I don't think more forces could help this. There was a thread today by Ryan O'Leary where he talked a bit about this problem And what he wrote is what I've heard from lots of people. I'll try to find his thread real quick. Um, yeah. Okay. So let me find it. Okay. So here is his thread. I'm going to throw it on the screen. So this is his thread, and this is what he is talking about. So 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 basically, he's saying that Ukraine has a manpower shortage, and that is true. But the issue that's going on in this area is not a manpower problem. Constantine, I'm actually really curious what you have to say about this, Constantine. Well, basically, he's saying that.
Hey, Andrew.
Hi.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I joined like a minute ago, so I did not hear.
Did you
much.
did you read Ryan O'Leary's thread about defenses?
Yep, I did.
Okay, so that's what we're talking about.
Right. Well, I read it. He mentioned multiple issues. He said that there is a man shortage, but one of the biggest issues, as I read it from him, and I spoke with him personally a bit also, is infantry. The fortifications and the infantry are just not up to this fight, basically. Problem that they come into the positions and infantry is doing nothing while it should be fortifying the positions. And by fortifying, it's not only digging in, you continuously have to fix them, you have to reinforce them, they break, they from the shell and from the drones, from everything, and it's not happening. And when what is core reason here, why is it not happening? It's because we don't have officers, commanding officers that know what they're doing on the positions. Unfortunately, it's a big problem, and I agree with that. We lack special lower level officers, and with the introduction of drones, even when you have officers, most of them are sitting in KSP, which is command and control HQ, basically. And they don't come to the position, so they look on them from the drones, and the military in place really lacks leadership. Obviously, Ukraine has a huge problem with NCOs as well. We never had NCOs properly integrated. We never had proper schools for them, and this is basically the issue he's describing, because you cannot expect infantry to do everything themselves. But our leadership often thinks that, they're gonna die if they don't do it. But no, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, they will die because they need a leader who will help them, who will guide them, and who will command them and be an authority. If you don't have that on the positions, it's a problem. And we rarely have designated people who actually have the right training, have the right knowledge, and and just do what is needed. It's a big problem. So I agree with him on most of the things. That's one of the reasons I'm delivering excavators, for example, because it's an engineering equipment that helps dig trenches. Obviously, you cannot use an excavator on the front line, but you can use it on the rear. And when infantry gets it like you stop relying on centralized force to build your fortifications, and it makes your job so much easier to build those fortifications. Obviously, it's not solving the problem of lack of leadership, but it helps. It helps a lot, and that's why I was doing it. For example, because I was in that position. I was in the trenches, and I was the one who was saying, "Okay, let's make it better. Let's fix it. And I hated to dig. So yeah, I hope that makes sense to you.
Yeah. So there's a few things, like a few tidbits that I've heard repeated over and over again. Like there's this one which I think is kind of more American, where you should be doing three things. You should either be sleeping, digging, or fighting. I think that's kind of more of an American way of saying it. Another way that I've heard it described is that every time you get rotated out of a trench or a defensive position, when you get rotated back in, you should not recognize where you are. It should be unrecognizable to you because it's been upgraded so much. Those are
Or destroyed. Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, those are good points. When you come, in Texas, I see the signs, and when you go camping, it says leave the place better than you found it. It's the same, for the change. If you want to survive, if you want to win, we gotta do those changes. But it's rarely happening. Most just sit in the bunker and wait. And the problem is, I do think that the root is the leadership, is the lack of leadership in first of all in our really high level command, which is which obviously knows that there is such issue and not doing anything. We don't have like designated schools that would teach people how to do this, and yet we have. And we have this problem, and there is obviously a lower level issue where we simply don't have, there are no such people, and it results in these problems. And yeah, you gotta it's absolutely correct. You gotta you either sleep, fight, or you dig. There is not much more. Or well, digging is just an expression that's the most common part, but you have to be fixing the positions. If they're dug properly, they continuously they break, the walls fall. You gotta fix them, you gotta reinforce them. Reinforcing them is important. That's why for example, in Ukraine it's very common to fundraise for things like tape, like the that you put on top of the trench so it stops water. You People fundraise for brackets to put the logs together. It's a very common thing. People fundraise for the fire extinguishers so you can fix the fire if it goes in.
Yeah.
People fundraise for mine picks for digging. It's when the ground becomes a bit hotter, it's really hard to dig, and people fundraise for the shovels.
Yeah, those are all good things. And of course, I don't know if you said this, but those big metal staple things. I don't actually know what those are called, but those things are good. So yeah, this is this whole thread is everything that I've heard from everyone I've talked to over the past few years. Basically, it's just I've had a lot of private conversations with people, and this is more or less everything that they said in a thread. Um, yeah, so and there have been a few things that I've had described to me because I don't really know anything about making trenches. But they described things to me like over time, the your trench is gonna like move.
And Andrew, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. I got a drop.
Okay.
Sorry. I'll be back soon, but I hope we can discuss it further. But I got to go right now.
Okay. So like over time, the trench will move due to shelling or like rain. Like the trench will slowly move over time, and the defender has to constantly keep the trench in position. Otherwise, it'll drift, and as it drifts, it usually gets more shallow and into a worse position over time. So you have to constantly dig it back to where it's supposed to be, and at the proper depth. And there are a few defensive positions that Ukraine has lost where I've talked to people who were in that position over a period of time, and they explained the position to me, and like they're pointing out that they put in like a concrete wall, and the reason they put in the concrete wall is because the soil was really soft, and they needed like an anchor point for the trench, or the trench would drift too much, and how like every morning when they woke up they would have to like make sure that the trench was butted up against that wall, because the trench would always want to drift away from it, and the wall was there to kind of support it, but it couldn't fully support it because you'd probably need concrete on both sides or whatever. Anyways, so he was talking about how in the video that the Russians showed of the position after they captured it, the trench had moved like 3 meters away from the wall, and the trench was originally like full depth, like 2 meters deep. And when the video was filmed, the trench was maybe 30 centimeters deep. So it lost all of its depth due to it shifting over time. So just things like that you have to constantly do. So there are some people freaking out, thinking like the war is over. No, just because these towns are falling one after another doesn't mean that the situation is like Russia's not going to do that all the way to Kiev. Like it doesn't work like that. Like it's a temporary thing. And other people are saying that defensive lines wouldn't help if you're outnumbered 10-1. The reason why they're so outnumbered is because Russia is attacking from all sides. If Russia were only attacking from one side, they would have far fewer people. If that makes sense. Because you can't sustain, like you wouldn't be able to sustain all of those people attacking from one angle, because they would get into like I don't want to say that word. I'm trying to think of a way to say it without saying that word. I'll say firing arc. There's another word that I don't want to say. Yeah. So anyway, a defensive line, what it would do is it would force Russia to kind of fight on more of a flat thing. So you would be attacking from one angle as opposed to attacking from every angle simultaneously, because that every angle simultaneously thing is why everything is collapsing. So that's why they need, like, Ukraine has to build a defensive line like back here somewhere so that they can fall back to it and have all of their flanks secure, so Russia only attacks from one angle, and that will reduce Russia's effectiveness.
Yeah, I think one thing to note is that there are in fact defensive positions there, which were mostly, built after the fall of Avdiivka. We do have quite a lot of them there, and I did consider Rodivka to be quite important. After Rodivka, I think there's a tank ditch, and in front of Rodivka, you have a bunch of those little boxes at tree lines. Now, those boxes, as far as I understand, are not very interconnected. So they are trenches individually, which makes this quite hard, particularly if you're basically, fighting at 360 degrees almost. But there are defensive positions which were lost or given up, either.
The individual defenses are one thing, but it's that they're not like integrated into like a big defensive idea. Like there's not like a cohesive defensive line. So we have some other things that I'd like to say. Lord Flashheart, I'm glad you have the Calypso in your soul. I'm glad. It lightens the day, you need it, the music in your heart to get you through, the difficult times sometimes. But he asks, he says, I've noticed a sharp increase in pro-Russian media in Twitter since the Kursk offensive started. Is it a coincidence, or is Russia doing an online counteroffensive? What do you think, Gik?
I think there's a bunch of obvious reasons. Most of the, Ukraine is still releasing FPV strikes and so on. But first of all, a lot of the aggregators, which you typically have on Twitter, they are very focused on Kursk, because that's where a lot of the gains and positive news comes from. So with Kursk being on a strict OPSEC, there is not that much content to actually aggregate on Twitter. It's mostly repetitive, and we will have to wait until Ukraine lifts a lot of the OPSEC to have the news reach us. The other thing is obviously that there's also an information campaign. because with the invasion in Kursk and Russia being relatively unprepared, their only really way to stop it quickly was to put political pressure, both from the inside of Ukraine by, portraying that operation as stupid with the fall of Pokrovsk, or not with the fall of Pokrovsk, but with the advances in Pokrovsk, and also, to have potentially other countries interfere. So I think it's, it's two things. It's really Ukraine being under strict OPSEC, and as far as I know, Kursk is not the only region which is, where this OPSEC is applied to. There might be other regions as well. So I guess we will have to wait until they lift it.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna go through other news, non-Kursk news, because we're gonna spend almost all the time talking about Kursk. But non-Kursk news, there are rumors, and by rumors I don't mean Russian rumors, because I actually haven't heard any Russians say this, but there are rumors from the Ukrainians. I keep scrolling in by accident. That Russia has crossed and captured this part of the highway right here near Vodiana. I have not seen actual evidence of that, but I just figured I'd bring it up because it is Ukrainian saying that. I kind of think it's not true, but the Ukrainians are saying that. So they're saying that Russia moved infantry in and captured a trench here, or some sort of defensive position right there. I haven't actually seen evidence though. So
yeah, I mean, maybe the reason why Russians don't claim it is because they already claimed it 2 or 3 weeks ago when they dropped the flag from a drone.
Yeah. Moving on up, in Chasiv Yar, I don't know of any significant changes. Russia is attempting to attack, and they're taking really heavy casualties because this is a really ridiculously awful place to attack with infantry, and you can't attack with anything that's not infantry. It's really just a terrible place. So the reason it's awful is because this canal is actually really steep on both sides, really steep and pretty deep. So you have to like climb down like really deep and then climb back up really steep. And once you're on the other side, you're just in the open. And the whole time you are subject to mortar fire and drones. So this is just turning into just there's so many ways I can describe it, but none of them I can say on YouTube. But anyway, it's bad for infantry.
I can describe it.
Okay.
I can describe it. There are ways the Russians are currently applying that might make the canal less deep and steep.
Yeah.
They might fill it up.
This is I think this is similar to what they kind of did in Constantinople, I think. And they just kept throwing people over the wall until the pile of people was taller than the wall. Anyways, so the other way to attack is through this forest, which is really proven to be difficult every time they've tried to get across. There's this little building right here, a little housey thing, and they try to get in there, and it doesn't work out. It just doesn't work out very often. And down here is the same problem. It's all just a terrible place to attack for infantry. I have no doubt that eventually Russia will get across and capture all of this, but they're just having a lot of casualties. Like it's a bloodbath. It's not good. And once they get in, like they can get in and get into these basements, but these basements are not a place you want to be because you can like just fly a drone into them. And also, like, how many supplies can you bring? Like, you're gonna run out of food and water eventually. And you're not gonna want to be in the basement anymore. No, like, how are you gonna get resupplied? Because like anyone who gets to you to supply you, are they gonna supply you, or are they just gonna supply themselves? It's like they just raced across like this canal that's like impossible to get across, and now they're stuck in a basement with you. I don't think they're gonna share. They might keep their stuff for themselves. You know? I don't know what's going on in those basements. That's all I'm saying. Moving on north, Russia is continually advancing north of Peshana. and they're moving in a general direction of Kupiansk and towards the Oskol River. So that's kind of all of the major changes that I can think of. Do you want to talk about Donetsk?
The Donetsk fire, I don't really have much to say other than I think it was a supermarket or some store which was hit, claimed civilian casualties, and claimed Ukrainian shelling or missile strike. There was one other video which showed a quite, it seemed to be from after a impact, so it could be a missile strike. Nevertheless, if you look at the parking lot, of course it could be that everyone drove away, but I'm not sure if it was used as any sort of supermarket or whatever. But I guess I'm not gonna judge it.
Okay, so do you want to go to Kursk? Is there any non-Kursk news you'd like to mention real quick?
I think it's worth to point out that there's basically no news from the Ukrainian side in Zaporizhia, and basically no news from the Ukrainian side up there in Kupiansk and Svatove directions.
There is some news in Zaporizhia.
Give it to me.
Ukraine has been launching wide-scale recon by force, like attacking Russian trenches throughout basically all of Zaporizhia.
Interesting.
And the Russians are not happy about this. They're complaining. They're like, every morning there's more recon, and we don't like it. We're scared. What are they planning? Anyway, that's happening across Zaporizhia. And both Ukraine and Russians have been talking about that. Although it's kind of like slipped through the cracks, like no one really cares.
Yeah, the thing is, so far I discounted most of those rumors when the Russians say that, in Zaporizhia, Ukraine is building a huge force to attack.
Oh, yeah.
I typically discount.
They're not saying that. They're just saying they're doing recon.
Okay, yeah. Well, the Russians say that there's a huge force waiting in Zaporizhia, and I typically just assume that those units saying that are really scared to go to Kursk because they know that Kursk is probably going to be awful for them.
Probably. But anyways, so that's kind of that. Yeah, and we've had like basically no news of Kupiansk. One thing that I'd like to just talk about very briefly. I don't really want to get into detail. But in Kherson, over the past week, Russia has been going out of their way to attack civilians on a very consistent basis. Antonivka is one of the really epicenters of where they do this, and also Kendiivka. So these basically the two suburbs east of Kherson. So they've been really viciously attacking civilians. There was one incident where they attacked a water distribution point, so like where people go to get clean water. They attacked it with bombs dropped from drones and did a lot of damage, actually. So I think several people were put in critical condition. One guy didn't make it, and I believe they also attacked first responders who were going to the event, going there to help them. Almost simultaneously, they attacked a fire truck in Stanislav with a drone drop bomb, and they pretty much destroyed the fire truck. It's not totally, it's probably repairable, honestly, but they caused very significant damage. They like caved in the roof of the truck, and this truck was gifted from Germany, and I know some Germans were upset about that. So they've been basically attacking this entire section of Kherson, just attacking just random civilians, just constantly, like multiple times a day. Some of them very severely wounded. So this has been kind of what Russia's doing. They're like angry at Kursk, so they're attacking random civilians in Kherson. So, that's just something I wanted to bring up really quick. So yeah, let's talk about Kursk. Oh, there's another thing we should talk about. The Patriot. You want to talk about the Patriot?
Yeah, we can talk about the Patriot, but I just noticed that the Russian MOD released like 5 minutes ago another video of the Patriot, which I'm quickly going to tag John in to make sure that we learn what he thinks about that. So yeah, the Patriot they released like, I don't know, 1 or 2 hours ago. It might be a Patriot actually. So John's assessment so far was that the launch of the air defense missiles actually looked pretty similar to what a Patriot, I think Pack 2 or Pack 3 he said would look like. At the same time, I saw some comments and they kind of make sense to me that it might have been a Hawk. It would also make sense with the, with the set of vehicles we see at that position. But also, I don't think it matters really that much because it doesn't appear like the cluster munition of the Iskander, which they used, did that much of a damage. There might be some shrapnel, of course, flying around, but there was no secondary. There was, I don't think there was significant damage to any of the assets there. And it's geolocated. You can probably click on one of the buttons.
It was in. I thought it was in Dnipro.
That's the plane. No, there should be a rocket symbol.
I don't see a rocket symbol, Gik. Anyways, you may have geolocated after I updated the map.
What a shame.
Or I did deadline, Anyways, there was another event. There was an Iris-T.
Yeah, that one was rather easy. That was a decoy. And there are like dead giveaways why it is a decoy. I don't think I'm gonna line out everything because
no booming.
No secondary is a good giveaway, but there are more details which make it more or less obvious. But I don't know, if everything is known, and I'm not sure if everything should be spoiled. But that one was a decoy, and in my opinion, you said they destroyed it or they hit it. In my opinion, they didn't even hit it. They hit it.
Well, I mean,
it was closer. It was closer than the cluster on the Iskander, but I wouldn't consider it destroyed.
When you're dropping like 900 kilograms of high explosive or whatever it is, that's a hit. It wasn't. It was pretty close.
But I think it was an airburst.
Okay.
Was it? It might have been. I'm not sure. It might have been.
It was close enough. Okay. It had a kill radius of like 100, like 300 meters or something.
Well, what I'm saying is I'm positive the decoy can be reused. They just put the same netting on top of it again, and
paint it. You put some like wood on it. Like replace the broken bits with like plywood.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Anyway, there is one more, and it's in Discord. I don't know if you want to watch it and then have your own opinion and state your opinion.
And I show it.
Oh yeah, it's just another Iskander cluster from distance.
Well, I can't show explosions.
Oh, you can't. Why?
Because that's like the thing they ban. Like that's okay. That's like the thing you're not allowed to show. I don't make the rules. I don't make the rules.
Okay,
I hate the rules, actually.
Here's a screenshot of some clouds. You should show those clouds.
You look at some clouds.
That's clouds, yeah. Yeah. So you see what appears to be 3 tells positioning. I would guess it could be that it's actually Patriot. Or decoys, of course. But yeah, I mean, at that distance, it's hard to see. I don't see a radar.
Don't they seem rather close together?
Yeah. I mean, it could be. We don't have any secondaries again. We just have those clouds dispersing rain. And I really wonder, because those Iskander cluster munitions, they look really stupid. I wonder how it looks like on the Earth, like being on the ground close to it. Like how much, does it actually distribute shrapnel? Because we also don't see any impacts on the ground itself. Yeah. But I guess it could be likely that there was some Patriot or some decoy setup.
Maybe. I haven't seen the video, so I can't really. I've just seen that. I just remember when they shot one of those missiles at an MRAP, and the MRAP was like, meh, and just drove away. So the MRAP didn't care.
Yeah. I hope that like those assets didn't care either. One more thing was the claimed Su-24, but actually MiG-29 in Dnipro.
Yeah.
So this one looks to be a real plane. For some reason, the Russian MOD claims it's a Su-24, probably because it's the higher value asset, because they really want to get rid of Storm Shadows coming their way. But yeah, it does appear to be a real plane, and the Ukrainian Air Force also announced that they lost the MiG-29. So we assume it's that one, or I assume it's that one. Even though the first Russian claims of a destroyed plane, they came out basically 10 minutes before we learned that the bridge in Klushkovo was actually airstriked, or airstruck.
Yes.
So I was kind of worried, that it's not connected. But I guess there's a MiG-29 and Ukraine says they lost the MiG-29. So let's assume it's that one.
Yep. Speaking of which, we had our friend Ramanov. He was doing some BDA for us this morning. So he posted like, "Let's go," right, with his little thing. I don't even know what that is, but it said FPV on it. What is that? I don't know what that is.
Oh, it's one of the things that China produces for the Russian army. Basically, it tracks. I think it tracks the signal in the atmosphere or in your surroundings, and if it catches one of those signals, it warns you of FPV threat. A lot of Russian soldiers actually carry that. So, yeah, if it turns red and beeps, then they try to get into hiding.
Mm. Must be a shame that not all FPV drones emit those signals.
I guess, yeah.
Must be.
Anyway. Yeah, but it is worth pointing out here that from the sunlight and everything, it appeared to be at around noon this day that, or it could potentially be yesterday, but I think it is this day, and also Romanov is known to release close to where close to the real time. Potentially around noon, he crossed that bridge into Klushkovo, and something like 3 or 4 hours later, the bridge had a minor accident.
Yeah, you can see that there was a little hole, not much of a hole, but when we all looked at this, holes. Yeah, when we looked at this, the hole wasn't big enough. We all agreed the holes were not big enough. So Ukraine said, okay, fine. And then they made the hole bigger. They made the hole bigger.
They made it quite a lot bigger, yeah. And on the bottom picture, those 4 impact dots which you see there, I think there was only one when Romanov passed by.
Yeah, I think there's only like this one.
And it also shows, we've seen this with the Antonovsky Bridge. The GMLRS is like, they can use it so precisely, if done right, to, they can write something into that bridge with GMLRS. If they were really funny and had enough of them, I guess they would. They would just write something stupid. But yeah, they basically they kind of weakened one of the points of the bridge and then dropped. I'm not entirely sure what it was. It looked too big to be a ASM or the GDBs or whatever. To me, it kind of looked like it had the right size of JDAM.
Yeah, but we think it was a 500-pound JDAM.
Yeah. So,
which is the biggest bomb that Ukraine has.
And they dropped it on the other side, so they basically disconnected the that segment, and it fell. And the importance of this bridge, it can't be understated for that region of Klushkovo. I think there are 2 tenable bridges across that river you see there. One is further, something like probably 10 kilometers further west. Then there's one which is untenable, which is close to Tetkino, which is basically at the border, which you can't really use.
Is this bridge functional? Because I thought I remembered Ukraine blowing up that bridge.
I thought it was functional.
Because I just remember, maybe they never blew it up. Maybe they just shot it a bunch of times. Because I do remember, I was watching. I mean, these bridges are useless at this point. They're useless. I'm pretty sure this one is broken. But I just remember geolocating videos here of Ukraine just shelling the bridge, just kind of for fun. Like, I don't think they're even trying to damage it. They're just like, lol, and firing shells at it. And a few of them were like just hitting it, like right in the middle. So yeah, I think this bridge has been shelled a lot. I'm not sure it's even functional anymore. I'm almost 100% positive this bridge doesn't exist anymore. And this one I think is probably gone too. I don't think these bridges exist. Or if they do exist, they're weakened. At least they've been shelled pretty extensively.
And it's a rail bridge, by the way.
Oh yeah, that one is a rail bridge.
Yeah, but you have one at Karisin and one at Slavone. So those are, those are technically tenable, but the more west they have to go, the closer they come into, Ukrainian range of whatever they want to fire. So for the Russian military, it is a very bad situation, I would say. There is a pontoon bridge, which is built basically here, right next to the bridge which was blown up.
It's adorable.
I'm not sure this pontoon bridge will be there for very long, if it's even still there. Because even after that bridge fell, we had GMLRS announcements in Klushkovo.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I think what Russia learned in Kherson is that a pontoon bridge is temporary. You kind of build the pontoon, cross the stuff you need, tear it down, and move it. I don't think they're going to keep a pontoon in one place unless they didn't learn a lesson last time. Because in Kherson, they were moving bridges like every few hours. They're like build it, and it was to the point where they had multiple pontoon bridges for each crossing. So like one of them would be being built while the other one's in use, and then once the new one's done, you tear down the old one and move it somewhere else. So that's what they were doing, because they kept getting hammered by Gimlers, and they were sick of it. So if Russia is capable of learning lessons, I imagine that's what they're doing here. But who knows?
Yeah, to be honest, I think that there's a limited amount of potential crossing points at all in that area. I don't think the terrain allows for moving the pontoon bridge too many times between too many different places. Yeah. But I guess we will see. We will have to track it on Sentinel and other satellite services.
You don't necessarily have to move it that far.
Well, I mean, we saw it with the airstrike. Ukrainian recon drones are flying there. Yeah. And I assume that they have pretty much everything inside. So yeah, but the moral of the story is, I think if you go back to yesterday or the day before, we already noted down that we already noted down that the governor of the region or of the oblast of Kursk announced that the Klushkovo district will be mandatory evacuated. So it looks like it's going to be hard for Russia to keep their presence there. And it looks like, at least if I were a Russian soldier, now we're at that area or in that area, I would probably not like it and try to get away, to be honest. What's your take?
Well, which way would you run?
North. If I were Russian. Well, actually, if I had a brain, I would run south and call
Yeah, you could
call
run
the
south. See, they could run to their favorite place, Volfina. They could run here, and that'd be a good place, I think.
yeah. There are numbers you can dial to, surrender. Unless, and that is one of the other stories or bigger stories from today, unless you're from 155th, then surrendering right now, is going to be tricky. You know what story I'm talking about?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I do. Bad.
Yeah. So to sum it up, the Russian Marines of 155th.
Can you? I don't know the story. Could you tell us?
Okay.
Yeah. I was just about to.
Okay, sorry, thanks. I'm gonna listen.
Okay. So the Russian 155th, which is known for their very heavy casualties, pretty much everywhere where they have been.
The naval infantry, right?
Sorry again.
Is this naval infantry?
Yeah. They've taken a pretty heavy beating pretty much everywhere they were. In Volodar as an example, and they have made known that they are now fighting in Kursk, and they've done so by posting I don't know if it's supposed to be a motivational video or a threat or whatever. They have beheaded a Ukrainian soldier and put the head on a pole and placed the pole at the border crossing in what's its name? Can you zoom down there, or should I? Oh, so it's not yet on the map.
I think it is on the map. Yeah, it's this one.
Yeah, exactly.
Not
You can click it. No, you can click it. It's first of all, it's censored. Secondly, I took the screenshot from DeepState, because I intentionally didn't want to link to the video. So yeah, at that border crossing close to Krasnopelia, they decided to put a head on the pole, and they made this video basically as a threat or to scare or whatever. And it has certainly pissed off quite a lot of Ukrainians, and a lot of very connected and good mill bloggers basically have more or less responded to what how stupid they are and what will happen with 155th kept next, if they decide to surrender. This is, of course, I mean, I can understand if you're pissed and you say something like that, but of course, I hope that Ukraine still treats everyone who decides to surrender according to the rules of war. Yeah, I guess I just guess that those soldiers will not surrender, and that's why whatever happens. Konstantin, maybe you can, hearing that story now, maybe you can say something.
No matter, yeah, I understand. I understand the emotions, but obviously, mill bloggers don't really, say don't really know what we're gonna do. But emotions run high. Things happen in the battlefield. But I personally also hope that nothing's gonna happen. Like if they're captured as POWs, they're treated as POWs. One of the and people ask me why they are criminals, etc. It's not even a war. People say, well, I'm saying that we still have POWs there, and we need exchange. And POWs are a very expensive, very valuable asset. So just from that, it's much more important to capture POWs than to kill them.
Yeah, and I'm convinced they will capture them. But
Yeah, I'm convinced in that as well. But things happen because it's combat, and not everyone is a hero, and not everyone is really having their emotions high. But most people just I think we discussed this a couple of streams ago as well. Someone wrote like you don't have any more emotions when you look at them, when you actually capture them, and it's not like you really want to hurt them. You don't have that feeling. So I think it's gonna be if we capture them, they're gonna be treated all right.
Yep.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. So I guess let's talk about what happened during the week. So there are. I mean, yeah. How to start? Basically, I think the overall picture of Ukrainian control hasn't changed much. First of all, I think after basically the first week and the first set of information, and this week was more or less used to release, I don't know, hundreds of flag videos. I mean, they feel good. I have to say that it feels good to see that, but at some point, seeing the 25th flag being raised in Zucha, I guess we can stop mapping them. So in terms of what is known from basically the first week, we did see quite a few captures. I think we saw one T90M capture. We saw two other tanks, one T80 BVM and one T70 BA were captured. So it's at least 3 captured tanks. I'm convinced there's a 4th one. We have seen the first what other? Oh yeah, we've seen the first actual combat destructions of Russian assets with the BMP-3s, which were, to be honest, they were kind of released by war spotting. It was fine to release them, but no unit so far claimed them for themselves or showed what happened. We had a bunch of BTRs, but overall the picture doesn't look like they had a lot of IFVs and tanks and so on in the area. We will see how that changes.
I will note that in every prior crossing, where Ukraine has crossed, the thing that stopped them from advancing were BMP-3s.
Yeah, and they took them out first thing, I guess. I mean, they kind of look like they were taken out by GMLRS or something like that.
Yeah. So, like the prior crossing, like the most recent one, if you remember, they moved up, and there were I think there were 2 or 3 BMP-3s like sitting next to a building, and they blew them all up. So I think BMP-3s were distributed along this whole front as they're reserved, like it's like their vehicle, like if under attack, get in the BMP. So it is not surprising that they would have BMP-3s here. What would be more interesting is if there's another batch of BMP-3s, because I bet like all these units only had like 1 or 2, and then they probably grouped them all up to make like some sort of mechanized force out of it, and now they're going to need more batches of them to keep fighting.
I think if we split the Kursk offensive up into a bunch of parts, and we talk about the west first, so the area towards Sagos and then Koronevo. So this week we did have a video of the. You're in the east.
Sorry.
That's the wrong side. So we did have a video yesterday of the Ukrainian forces taking, I think they announced something like 105 POWs from the southern part of Sagos. So I don't remember the village exactly, but it was still fairly close to the border. And they only released it, I think, yesterday, which made me wonder, if those guys were sitting in yeah, there should be a dot if you go to yesterday. Go to yesterday. Oh yeah, it's actually there. Yeah. Exactly. So it made me wonder, if those guys were surrounded by day one, and I think Konstantin can talk more about that because he knows the story and confirms basically exactly that.
Yeah, so they were surrounded on day one and maybe day two. I don't, no one gave me exact dates, but they were surrounded for quite a long time there, and they were sitting there. And our forces just moved past them, and everyone realized, okay, let's just keep them there. They're not going anywhere. We have our SBU, it's not, SBU is not storming anything, so we could utilize them into clearing them up. So I was told the SBU set up a perimeter, help to make sure they're not, moving anywhere. And at some point they had an operation to clear, to get them out of there and take them as POWs. And we've seen an active video, I think, from the place, from the guys that were doing it, actually, not only from the sky but also from the ground.
Oh, there's actually no drone video. There's no drone video released, Konstantin. There's only the ground videos, and the inside bunker video, I think, is also there, which is really interesting because also you could see that some of the bodies down there were actually laying there for quite some time. So yeah, it must have been horrible for them to be in there, and yeah, I guess they got kind of scared. And the way Ukraine forced them out is basically any opening that existed, they kind of lobbed something down there. And I mean, there's a video which is kind of interesting where they scream into one of those little chimneys or air, I don't know how you want to call it, air pipe. They scream and use is it a megaphone?
Yeah.
A loudspeaker, something like that, a megaphone. Yes. Yeah, they use it to tell them to give up and so on, and warn them that grenades will come. And then you can see after the guys get out, anyone who didn't yet get out, they throw down grenades to make sure that anyone who didn't want to surrender has another second chance basically to do so now. But yeah, it's an interesting video, and it's a significant event. I think someone talked about one of the biggest captures of POWs for Ukraine in the entire war, or yeah, for one day even. But I'm pretty sure that news story was, it didn't make sense if you count the total announced POWs per day for that operation. Clearly, the daily average was above those 100 and something from that place. So it can't really add up in that sense. So I guess the news story wasn't entirely entirely right in how it stated it. I assume they meant in a single event, like the biggest amount of POWs from a single event. So yeah, significant, and also very interesting to watch. I recommend it, even though you might see some Russians which are very tired. Yeah. Also, that we can see that Ukraine is more or less consolidating towards the river. There is a river basically at Baki going towards Koronevo. We can see that, yeah, I assume that Ukraine will consolidate this entire line.
If not
sorry?
more, if not more.
Well, I think with the forces currently there, it's what they do. Basically consolidate towards the river. And I assume that Klushkovo will more or less collapse by itself. They are probably trying to, make sure that there's not too much of an insurgency or resistance or whatever, and that people get out. But I would not assume that they will, continue too far west from the Sagos angle across the river. Instead, I would assume that there would be another border crossing somewhere further west, and then basically cutting that off and then consolidating anything in between. For the Sagos section, there is a town called Red October, I think, in English. If you zoom in, south of Koronevo directly. further. Yeah, exactly. Krasno, Red October. So this means Red October. There's claims by the Russians that Ukraine is in the town, so they would have reached the river there, which would be significant also for the future of Korenevo, because from there you can potentially also go along the river and put additional stress on Korenevo. In terms of Korenevo, we have pretty much learned that I would assume on day 2, Ukrainian forces had already reached it and dug in. We had airstrikes, which from the images, or from the videos, looked like they were really early in the Kursk invasion. So it looks like, Ukraine was there really early. They dug into some of those tree lines and also by the river further north. We have Russian FPV drones and those airstrikes this week in that area. Else than that, I think this region is something we do not want to talk too much about. There is a lot of rumor by Russians saying that Ukraine has passed the river at Olgovka and
We lost Gik. Gik told me before we started that he will at some point lose his headset. He said that when he loses it, he'll lose it for approximately 2 minutes. So, here we are. Here we are. Constantine, do you want to tell a 2-minute story? Tell us about your fundraiser. How's your fundraiser going?
Oh yeah, it's complete now. We got
Complete.
The goal was $110,000.
The last time I looked, there was 75.
113.
There you
We
go.
got 113,000 right now.
Yeah, I retweeted it when there was like 75.
Oh,
good.
nice.
That's good.
Well, you
Okay.
retweeted initially when it was 0, so thank you for that. It helped a lot. Like your retweets, they are one of the most effective ones, I gotta say.
guys,
You're back.
Oh, welcome back.
when did I break up?
You said that they were going towards the river.
Where?
North of Olgivka.
Okay, so not that long, right?
No.
Okay, because I was continuing to talk and I didn't realize that I don't hear anything anymore. And I was asking you questions, and then I realized because you didn't respond.
Yeah.
So, okay. Yeah, okay. So I don't know what I said, but
You said that,
or what you heard.
said that there are rumors that they were moving north of the river up here.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, pretty much coming from, I guess, mostly Russian side, that Ukraine had crossed the river there at Olgovka. I said, and I'm not sure if that still came across, that we won't really comment on those rumors, or I won't comment on those rumors. But that it would be an obvious maneuver, basically, to flank Korenevo in order to not having to cross the river in Korenevo head on, because that would most likely, lead to higher casualties. I mean, crossing a river, and it's kind of an open area around the river in Korenevo. So crossing that, would be very visible to Russians and kind of defensible or defendable.
So anyway, this Russian comment of the CNN journalists, right? It's so funny. Like I was just like, as you were talking, I was like scrolling through Telegram and I saw it again. I just break out laughing, man. It's so funny. How of all the countries in the world, how can the Russians say that it's wrong to send journalists into another country? They say that CNN journalists entered Russian territory near the Zucha checkpoint. And they're meaning it as in like they entered illegally, right? Like they were wrong for doing it. Is the what they're saying, really? How can Russia say that? It's like of all the countries.
It's it's parallel realities. For them, anything in the world belongs to them, but nothing belongs to others. And I don't know, but I've seen Ukrainian flags in Zucha. It looked pretty Ukrainian. There was this old lady which was talking Ukrainian back to the soldiers.
Yeah, and
There was a video on Deep State. I recommend watching it, and I think Dimitri actually translated it.
yeah, and
So
the people were chanting like Slava Ukrainian. So
yeah, exactly. So that sounded or looked very Ukrainian. I don't know if CNN even knew that they were supposedly in Russia. Also, maybe that part of Kursk decided to become independent and found some tanks somewhere at stores and so on. I mean, we can play this forever and ever. Russians won't. They will bend everything in the way they want. Okay. You want to continue north because that is where a lot has happened.
like fleeing reporters.
I didn't even mean that far north.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was also interesting. So also there's one annoying part here. Okay, so if you click on the airstrike symbol there, okay, in the background that building, I have that this is a copy-based building. This building is a swimming pool, and it exists. We've already found 3 occurrences of it. There's one right next to the bridge in Klushkovo. There is one in Belgorod at least, and there's this one. So I'm 100% sure whoever designed it probably sells it as an individual concept, to each of the customers. But yeah, this building is, if you see it, it could be anywhere. You can't use the building to geolocate. We learned that the hard way. Because we basically in Belgorod, which made us to believe that this airstrike was also in Belgorod, and the story is complete bull crap. But yeah, in the end, it exists there, so it kind of makes sense. But nevertheless, that crater doesn't exactly look like a GMLRS. This looks like a classical crater from a fab, and if I would not know any story they're selling me and just look at the crater, I would say that Russia bombed this. What do you think?
Yeah, it looks like a kind of a low velocity impact. It's not very deep. It's not any sort of shaped charge. Like for example, like an S-300 would bury a very deep crater because it has that. It just buries like these really deep conical craters. This is like more of like a flat bowl. So and it's rather large. So yeah, it looks like a bomb.
Yeah. Anyway, the reporter was going through Elgov and more or less showing all the damage the Ukrainians are causing. And if you click on the other symbol, on the other icons now, there should be 2. No, they're still in Elgov. Yeah, exactly. So the reporter was filming of course, in the residential area, and hiding well that right behind there is the train tracks, which is a very important logistics hub for Russia right now here. And those GMLRS or whatever Ukraine used to attack it were quite evidently arriving at the train station. It's not known what was hit, but nevertheless, it was basically filmed by the reporter, sold as strikes on civilians. Yeah, that's most likely not the case. But yeah,
I remember a reporter filming a strike in Crimea. Do you know what ever happened to that guy?
Johnny.
Yeah.
You mean Johnny, the secret agent?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that he's still correcting airstrikes in Crimea. They still leave him out in the open, running around filming damage and also reporting, vehicles and so on. That's what I heard.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Good for
But
you.
anyway, that's a bit too far north. I didn't want to go that far north now, but
Well, like,
I mean, what we can see and what we can read on Telegram is that Ukraine keeps a lot of stress on those towns and villages. There's like, if you follow the Telegram accounts from those localities, there's pretty much an air raid alert almost every other minute. So yeah, they are put under a lot of stress, and they get to feel what war is like, which isn't the worst thing that could have happened to Russians. So they wake up at some point, maybe. What else do we have here? I think we barely moved the control line, and that is because we have not seen the Ukrainian forces actually, exploit all of the area which they, or all of the ground which they have covered before. Nevertheless, we see that Ukraine is operating really far or really deep into Russia. There was one significant event north of Kauchuk at Safronivka or something like that. If you go 2 days, or actually one day back now. Yeah, and further north. That one is boring. It's just BTR. But this event was significant.
yes.
So what we have here is a properly set up ambush by the Russians. By now, we know at least 4 vehicles in that column were destroyed. There is significant loss to personnel. We saw a bunch of vehicles trying to run off. But there are more vehicles which were posted as part of this set of images and so on. So most likely they also didn't really make it. We like all of the videos we saw so far, there were survivors, but it is not known what happened to them. The area, however, if you want to look at it in Google Earth, the area is really interesting because this is actually a prime location for an ambush. And given that from the geography, this is so evident, I'm kind of surprised to see the way Ukraine moved into that place. Also because it's not that Russia didn't use any vehicles. They did go there with a BTR. So after first vehicles were more or less disabled, they had a BTR running into there, and firing along the street and into whatever disembarked and so on, causing more casualties. So this is the road that Ukraine used along that village, basically. And now if you go across the river, so to your right side a bit, Russian soldiers, yeah, there's a bubble there. If you go further left now, yeah, there, that bubble. So Russian soldiers were filming from that red bubble on the left. And if you look at that geography, it's more or less evident that there's a good spot, to hide stuff and hide in the bushes and to have a good overview of, whatever comes your way. So personally, looking at that, it does feel like Ukraine made a mistake here. The area, in my opinion, also considering that there was a BTR, a Russian BTR, engaging the targets, that area needed better scouting. And clearly, or at least in my opinion, it might have been better to avoid it for the geography reasons. But to be fair, I did not look at what other points could they potentially have used there.
Yeah, and it seems that maybe they did, but like it seems that coming down this road would be a better choice. Maybe did they like wrap around and go this way?
No, the other way around. You see them trying to run off towards the current north. I don't know. It should be south.
Yeah, this would be east.
Yeah.
Up is east, basically.
Yeah. So I think the tally of that set of images posted in terms of vehicles is something like, I think, 7 or 6 MRAPs and a Humvee. There, as said, there are enough pictures of also Ukrainian casualties. From what I know, it's been 82nd Brigade which was ambushed here. I personally only hope that they learn from that and improve whatever elements they use to scout and ahead of their ambush, ahead of their MRAPs, because those MRAPs, if you have one of those BTRs firing into you, it's I don't think it's very it's a good experience in those MRAPs.
Yep. Yeah, it's kind of frustrating that this keeps happening, but I guess it's also probably difficult to avoid. I'm not going to say unavoidable, but they're moving a lot of people in a lot of different places, from what I see. So having a few of them run into something like this, it's going to happen, I guess. It's like a statistical thing. There's things you can do to avoid it, and they probably should do those things, but even if you were perfect, you'd probably still run into them every once in a while.
And from what the Russians say, basically they said that the Ukrainian tactics right now in those areas is that they move with small groups ahead, something like 2 MRAPs, and we have seen it a lot of times that 2 MRAPs are stranded somewhere together. And what the Russians say is 2 MRAPs basically scout the area. If they encounter resistance, they avoid the place, try to get away, and try to find another gap. And once they found a gap, they move in with a larger force. One of the things that could potentially have happened here is that the Russians, were aware of that tactic being deployed in that moment, and hence potentially leaving whatever vehicles came first, just pass by and waiting for the real grouping. That could have been something, that the Ukrainians felt too secure in that moment. But it's really hard to judge and to, we don't really know what happened other than what the Russians posted. And we don't know the state of that village as of now. This is the last information we have basically from that area. But it appears that overall, and if you go back to your map, to just give an overview of where this was again, overall, Ukraine seems to be moving in a lot of places there. And what I fear right now is that the consolidating forces are not quick enough to move the actual control in order to secure those forward elements, to a greater extent. But I guess this is something which we will see how it plays out. We get very little or no information from Ukrainians. It's typically motivational messages. We made gains, we took POWs, and in most of those cases, it will turn out true. But we currently don't have a lot of information from there.
Yeah. Yeah, and okay, so I think it's obvious that Ukraine controls something in this middle area, or at least that control comes and goes. But it's not obvious exactly what they control. It has to be something. Because today, I'll tell you what, today, I changed the map today, Gig. You might disagree with it. I don't know if you saw it, but today I changed this area here because I do think they actually control this area. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I do think they actually do control this area, and it is getting bombed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it makes sense. I think if you go back, we saw airstrikes in that area quite early. Wasn't it also in that area? Yeah, we had the clusters there and so on. Yeah, I guess it would make sense. Yeah. I mean, it's easy to be wrong here with so little information.
Yes. But they are attacking north from somewhere, and I don't think they're using this road. So I think they're moving across this countryside, and this area is getting bombed actively. So I think they're basically going like this. But we'll see, I guess. So yeah.
Towards the highway between Zucha and Kursk, basically. This highway, like, it's the first time today that we saw flying skull appear in the area.
Very exciting.
Yeah.
Ever since they posted that hype video the other day.
Yeah. I think it's pretty evident that those drone attacks were from, an earlier time during the offensive, probably when they tried to interdict whatever Russia wants to send down the highway to Zucha. They did hit a bunch of loaves, I think one truck. And whatever basically was military and moved along that road, was getting struck.
Ukraine, they attempted to bypass the town. They had some forces out in these fields. I think we had a video of one of them getting hit. Or anyway, they had some forces out in these fields, and they were using drones and whatnot to try to capture this area, and it didn't work out.
Yeah, else than that, I don't think from that far out there's any news. From further south, we have Martinovka, which is confirmed under control by pretty much both sides, except for Akhmat. I think Akhmat still claims that they have soldiers there.
Yeah, and Mikhailovka.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think, I think it's more or less firmly controlled. Today we had rumors of, rumors. Actually, it's one of the channels I take more serious than others, and it's a Russian channel. And that Russian channel announced that Ukraine basically has moved east from or southeast from Zucha, controls Ulanok and the town coming thereafter. Can you zoom in so I can see it? Yeah, this one, Nizhne Mahovo. So this is the claim. And ever since the fall of the defensive positions east of Zucha, I guess it's not unlikely that Ukraine moved along that road. I'm not sure how firm any control would be.
I don't think they're moving along the road. If they did capture them, I think they're coming from the south.
Yeah, well, Borky, they also claim Borky is under control, so it could be that they moved north from Borky as well. Yeah. But anyway, so the claim is that Ukraine is more or less there, and whatever is in between there and Zucha, in my opinion, is then not tenable anymore for Russians. Yeah. So yeah, I guess we will see more or less some movements there. Also because it's easier for Ukraine to actually consolidate that area still, because of you can easily supply it and so on. You can easily move your forces there. One more big event this week was in Giri. It was this week, right?
Yeah, I think so.
So yeah, okay, that is one of the bigger and sadder stories this week. So we saw a patch from 9.2, so pretty evident that it was 92nd Brigade moving into Giri with BTR-4Es. Again, it did look like I took a lot of time to think about what happened, because in the morning we had seen a resident from Giri posting footage of BTR-4E just traveling through Giri, right? And really peacefully. And at that point, I assumed it was Ukrainian. Then the Russians posted an image of a captured BTR-4Es, and suddenly, it was no longer clear: is it Russian or is it Ukrainian? Could have been it was Russian running back to whatever position. Then the next item was that the Russians actually posted an ambush at the railway, which is why is it that symbol?
What? The
The-
captured vehicle symbol.
Oh, okay, that's captured. Yeah. Anyway, if you zoom in, there's another bubble there. Yeah, exactly. So the Russians staged an ambush here. They missed RPG shots at very close range. Nevertheless, the ambush was successful. They stopped a bunch of BTRs there. They captured BTRs there. From that point on, I had assumed that it was actually the captured BTR-E, which was running, through Giri, and a resident filmed that. But I've personally changed my mind because the Russians had released like a drone video of the events, and it showed Ukrainian-controlled BTRs moving all the way through Giri in the north. So if you zoom out again, in my opinion, something must have gone really wrong there. And again, it feels like 92nd might have felt too secure. That Russians had set up proper insurgents, in some, I don't know, in basements, whatever, all around the village or town or whatever. Because Ukraine was in control of the highway towards Peskanoe. They had, stationed at least 2 BTRs. It looked like it was it was 3 because they had 2 basically on a little field road and one on the street itself. They had those BTRs patrolling inside Giri, and they had BTRs moving through towards the northwest of Giri towards Belitsa. So it looked calm and under control for Ukrainians. And then suddenly something must have happened. And the only way I can explain it, and also with the foot.
We lose Gik again. I think we lost Gik again. Anyways.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we lost you right at the part where you were about to say your theory. Yeah. You want to say your theory? Do you want me? I could say my theory. Guess I'll just say my theory because Gik is having an issue. My theory is that all of these events happened over multiple days. But
So sorry, I cut off again.
Yep.
So I guess you covered for me. One of the things I wanted to mention was the new drone which we saw.
Yeah. What was that called? I forgot what it's called. I'll find it because we have it written down. I just can't remember off the top of my head.
Oh, but someone is spamming in our tutorial channel. Oh no! It's a drone ID channel, right? Isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, it is. A Vandal drone.
Vandal.
Yeah, something Vandal. It has a longer name, but we will call it Vandal. So that appeared, I think, for the first time on that day. They also mixed in some footage from Toretsk, which was kind of funny, but I guess, the more you show, the bigger it looks. But the drone has, it has a very good video feed. The claim is that it is actually wired. Do you believe it's wired?
I mean, I find that unlikely, but I guess it's possible. It's very agile. It's got to be. It looks fixed wing the way it flies. It's got to be the most agile fixed wing drone.
Yeah, and it has a really good video feed. I mean, I have not seen an FPV drone hit with that good quality before. So I guess the signal could be digital.
Yeah. Where's a nice video?
Oh, the BTR's to the right there. To the right, yeah. Further right. They're there. No, not that far. The red dot.
This one.
No, further right.
This one.
No, are you blind?
I
To your right now, there's a red lancet symbol.
give up. I give up.
No, you don't
Oh,
give up.
this
Zoom.
one. This one.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
This is from the drone. It's really high quality.
Yeah. It
And-
is.
and-
It's very high quality. I had no clue what it was. It's so agile. It's so crazy. I think I can share this video because there's no booms or anything.
Yeah, it should cut off, I think.
Let's see if I can. You can see how fast it turns.
We're not seeing it yet. Oh yeah,
no,
now
no,
we
I
do.
was setting it up. Okay, so here we go. See how fast? Boom, so fast. I don't mean speed wise because it's actually traveling pretty slow, but it's agility. Look how quickly it changes directions for a fixed wing drone. I'm almost certain this is fixed wing because of the way it rolls. It rolls the turn like a fixed wing, as opposed to like a quadcopter that just like changes, just like boom.
Yeah,
But
and-
this is more smooth.
Yeah, and we had a bunch of drone specs which we called, I think, Coop, because there was something mentioned about a drone named Coop, and I feel like it was maybe exactly that. And then it would be fixed wing. It was very bright, and we saw it doing some really stupid maneuvers. But if you look
Yeah.
into our spreadsheet and search through Coop, you should find a bunch of things which I consider might be exactly that drone. But anyway, it seems to be a new addition to the war. It might be wire controlled. Then it would very likely be very limited in range.
Those wires
but-
can go like 5 kilometers or so, maybe more.
Yeah, but that makes the drone really expensive. Then I guess.
Yeah, it would be kind of like a. Okay, so those the North Korean missiles that they gave to Russia, those are guided by wire too. So, and those have a range of I think 20 kilometers, but those are rockets, not a drone. So, you can bring the wire out pretty far. It's the weight of the wire that's the issue. It adds up. Even if the wire is very small, it still adds up over a few kilometers.
Yeah, but yeah, this event, I think, is pretty much the last thing we know about Giri. We did have the video, I think, yesterday or the day before, where Russian soldiers travel along the road. They pick up a conscript. It's not entirely clear when that happened, but the fires which are visible on the horizon indicate that those fires could be recent. And he claims that Ukrainians shot at him at the church. So I'm not entirely convinced that this footage, is that old at least. But anyway, yeah. After that, we had a bunch of civilians still going through Giri, showing the wreckages of the BTRs. I think the total count in the end added up to 6 vehicles lost for Ukraine here. So it was a significant blow. And since then, I'm not entirely sure how Ukraine is developing, other than going through Borky and then Ulanok. And I guess once Ukraine is actually in the position to approach Belitsa and Giri from 2 sides, that might be a different story again.
Yeah.
But yeah, until then, this smells like a defeat for the moment.
Yeah, I kind of expect Ukraine to kind of clear out this whole area, honestly. Not immediately. It'll take time. But I do kind of expect they will kind of clear out to like here. But we'll see.
I guess else than that, on the bigger picture, throughout the week we have seen Ukraine stress testing border in several other locations as well. Some of them hugely unsuccessful. So Krasnopilya, as an example, looks, I don't know. It reminded me more of what RDK did in Belgorod.
Yes,
to be honest.
and it was a very small group too.
Yeah, and I'm not. Maybe it was RDK. Maybe it was. It
It was
didn't
like 2
appear.
vehicles.
Yeah, it didn't appear to be very professional. Unfortunately, I'm not sure if they plan to just rush through that border gate. That clearly didn't work out.
No.
So yeah, that was a failure. Yeah, but we see Ukraine is active along pretty much the entire border, also up until Bryansk. We still have FPV drones there. So yeah, we will have to see what the next episode brings.
Yes.
I know you're still very positive over the Kursk invasion, right?
Oh, it's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah, so do I.
like it. I like that bringing the fight to Russia. I think Russians are very upset. The Russians in the area are upset. The people. I keep thinking back to that woman who was saying like she had no time to pack her stuff, and she was sad because she left behind her cat, and the other one was like, "Your cat? I left behind all of my stuff. I can't wait to go home and get my car." It's like, you're not gonna get your car.
Yeah, unlikely. So what I saw was Korn. It was actually, I think it was Korn. They were really pissed this week by the residents which fled the area. So the Russians which fled. They were so pissed because they found several dogs which were, locked up. I'm not sure. A lot of those Russians appear to have thought that they will return shortly, leaving their dogs and animals locked up.
Cannot imagine leaving my dog behind.
Yeah, neither could I, to be honest. I mean, I don't have a dog, but even my cats, I'm not going to say it out loud because otherwise they will come screaming again.
Yeah, there's no way. Like, even if I thought I was going to be gone for a few hours, I'd still bring my dog.
So yeah, currently they seem to be, freeing animals, which is, yeah. Oh, and we should talk about Orange Pants Guy, orange Shorts Guy.
Yeah.
Do you have the image?
I have something better than the image.
Oh, the Erland image.
Of this.
What Erland? Yeah. So this is already a legend, and I think we want everyone to know this guy. So Orange Shorts Guy. I think he's part of the 116th mech. So and he seems to invade Russia with orange shorts because there are several videos of him running around like that through Russia. And I don't know, but he's one of my favorite now. So Orange Short Guy, we love you.
Imagine like you show up and you're like, okay, the invasion's today, and he's like, I left my pants at home. Like, well, we have to go. He's like, I only have these shorts.
Yeah. But yeah, he's great. Some other notable events may be worth bringing up. So we did have an SSO raid by the first detachment of the 8th, east of Zucha. They raided a Russian flatbread loaf, I think you called it.
It was a flatbread.
Yeah. There should be an image of the loaf. Exactly.
Look at this loaf. It's
Yeah,
a flatbread truck.
Yeah, so it's a loaf with something to load stuff, on the back, but it's not a pickup loaf. I learned that.
It's a
And
flat.
for
yeah,
everyone,
flatbread.
Andrew is very, very he's very strict with how we call the loaves. Like if you call a loaf the wrong loaf, there might be no food for a week.
The worst is when you call a loaf a van. How dare you? First off, how dare you call it a van? Not a van's a loaf.
Yeah. Anyway, what's interesting about that is that Russians are really pissed because in the video you can see the Ukrainian SSO actually having red armband to blend in. Now it's obviously not perfidy in that case because the armband, it's whatever. But obviously, this anger by the Russians and this warning that you can't trust anyone with a red armband is a development within Russian forces which I find very encouraging. There are several stories this week, and I assume that some of them are placed by Ukrainian psyop operators, whatever. There are several stories this week that Ukrainians approached their village, in captured gear, whatever, and said that they are the reinforcements to defend against the Ukrainian invasion. And then basically the next step was that the village was changing flags. So those stories, they are floating around in Russian Telegram, and I find them highly encouraging and funny. And I also find it very funny because it's either true and you can trust whatever looks Russian, or it's not true and they actively spread information that makes them mistrust Russian looking forces. So yeah, having those stories out there is a win-win for me. So yeah, I hope to read more of that, and I don't know, as long as it's not perfidy, I don't know. I will be looking forward to reading more of that.
Yep. I just for the people, just for the record, I just want to show a few images, right? Okay, so here we go. We're going to the internet, right? So here, this is a flatbread truck right here. See, it's a loaf in the front and a truck in the back. Flatbread truck. Here, this is a pickup loaf. Half loaf, half pickup truck. Pickup loaf, and of course these are loaves. This is a loafulence, So that's a fire. This is a fire loaf, I guess. These are just loaves, and that of course is a flatbread truck. So that's these are the loaves, So there you go. Just so that people know. Important.
By the way, Deep State just confirmed that Ukraine liberated Borky.
Nice.
So and Deep State seems to be reporting still with quite a delay.
Mm.
All right.
The people want a picture of Romanov to show how this is going. So so yeah, this is here's your this is how it's going.
Yeah, quite literally. Except that currently he only moves anywhere if he's fully geared. And fully geared means literally like I don't understand how he can even still move.
I don't either. He turns into like a bubble man. He's like this is evil Romanov. I have lots of Romanovs, but also this one. Anyway, those are some Romanovs. Anyway, so that's all we have to say for today. We have to go. Well, I have to go do more videos.
I'm kind of hoping that we go back to the spreadsheet and the slaves did all of them.
I don't think we're that lucky. Maybe.
Yeah, I don't think so either. And at some point, we will understand that.
It says there's 17 to go. Ellie's been over there doing videos.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Ellie, we love you.
We have a new stats panel to track people and how much food they get.
By the way, that would not be legal at my work to track how much someone does.
She just did another
So
one.
I just want to point that out, even though we have clearly no, democracy or any rule or protection, slave protection.
You're not allowed to track how much work people do in Germany. That's illegal.
Yeah, it depends on what level, but at least at my company, it would be illegal to track, or to also, basically to track how much someone does. Pretty sure it is. And it might be a general law to some extent. But, Germany's kind of ridiculous with employee protection, to be honest.
I don't even know if that's an employee protection, to be honest. That just seems like being silly.
But it comes from employee protection.
I guess. I roll with a loaf fist. It's true.
Are you trying to show something?
No. Oh boy. Oh.
Okay.
Something's happening. I just started hearing the loaf song out of nowhere. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna stop the stream now. Okay, so thank you for coming, everybody. You can leave a like if you liked it. It's actually really useful to us. And we're gonna go now, and we're gonna go do more mapping. That's what we make maps. Goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.